You think you know heartbreak? I learned what true betrayal felt like on my 32nd birthday, when my wife, the woman I loved, orchestrated my public humiliation, serving me divorce papers with her entire family cheering in the background. That day, my world didn't just crash. It exploded into a million pieces, leaving behind a chilling quiet and a dangerous resolve. My name is Eric, and for a long time, I genuinely believed I had it all. A steady job as a graphic designer, a comfortable home, and Claire, my beautiful wife. We've been together for 6 wonderful years, married for 3, and honestly, things seemed pretty good. But looking back now, I can see the hairline cracks I was too blind to notice, the tiny fractures that hinted at the earthquake to come. It wasn't until my birthday party, of all days, that everything truly fell apart. It started innocently enough. Claire had insisted on throwing a big celebration, much grander than our usual quiet dinners with friends. She promised it was a surprise, and even though I'm not really a big party guy, I went along with it. After all, it was her way of showing love, right? Our friends were coming, and even her parents were flying in, which felt special. I didn't think anything of it. Then I walked into the living room. The moment I stepped inside, I saw the balloons, the decorations, the forced smiles. But something felt profoundly wrong. Claire was nowhere in sight, and a knot of dread twisted in my gut. I tried to shake it off, telling myself I was being paranoid. That's when I saw the table. It wasn't just a party spread. There were papers scattered all over it. And Claire's relatives, her father, her brother Ben, a few cousins, they were huddled around it, whispering amongst themselves, their faces grim. I smiled, a forced, awkward thing, feeling the suffocating tension in the air. They didn't look like they were there to celebrate. "Hey, everyone," I called out, trying to break the silence. Nothing. Not a single response. My smile faltered, and a cold, sinking sensation settled in my stomach. I turned to my friend Mark, who was standing by the drinks table, looking just as bewildered as I felt. "What's going on?" I whispered. "Why are they all so quiet?" He just shrugged. "I'm not sure, man. Maybe it's a surprise." But it didn't feel like a surprise. Not in the slightest. Then Claire entered the room. She was holding something in her hands, but she wasn't smiling. I expected her to walk over with a cake, maybe a hug. Instead, she made a beeline straight for me. And in her hands, I saw it. Divorce papers. The words "dissolution of marriage" were emblazoned in bold, stark letters at the top of the page. What is this?" I asked, my voice trembling despite my best efforts to keep it steady. The room went eerily quiet. Everyone was watching. It felt like I was trapped in some twisted reality show. Claire didn't respond at first. She just looked at me, her expression utterly unreadable. Then, slowly, she extended the papers. "Sign it," she said, her voice flat, devoid of any emotion. I looked around the crowd. Her family. Her parents were watching me closely, their eyes cold and calculating. Her brother Ben was leaning back in his chair, arms crossed, a sickeningly smug look on his face. The ground felt like it had been pulled out from under me. This wasn't a party. This wasn't a celebration. This was an execution. "Claire, why? What's going on? We're fine, right?" I pleaded, my voice cracking. She wouldn't meet my gaze. Instead, she simply said, "I can't do this anymore, Eric. You're not the man I married." My heart pounded against my ribs. I wanted to argue, to shout, to demand answers. But something about her demeanor, so cold, so utterly detached, made me feel small, insignificant. The room remained still, the tension so thick I could almost taste it. Claire's father, a man who had always been distant but polite, stood up slowly. "She's made up her mind, son," he said, his tone surprisingly sharp. "It's time for you to let go." Let go? Let go of what? I felt my entire world crumbling around me. I looked at Claire again, desperately searching her face for any sign of emotion, any shred of the woman I had fallen in love with. But there was nothing. She was a stranger. "I don't understand," I whispered, almost to myself. What happened? But Claire just shook her head. It's over, Eric. I've already made arrangements. The papers are final. I want you to leave. I stood there, frozen, as she pushed the papers toward me again. I glanced at the crowd, my heart hammering. Her family wasn't comforting me. They weren't offering support. No, they were all just watching. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just Claire's decision. This was a family affair. Her parents had been waiting for this moment. They were eager for it. I could see it now, how they had been quietly feeding into her frustrations, pushing her to this point. I was just the target of their anger. This wasn't a divorce. It was an orchestrated humiliation. My hands were shaking as I picked up the pen. I didn't even know why I signed them. Maybe I just wanted the agony to end, or maybe I thought that if I signed, I could simply walk away. Either way, I didn't argue. I didn't fight. I signed the papers. The second I did, Claire looked at me with cold, empty eyes. "Thank you," she said flatly. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I just turned and walked out of the house. As I left, I heard her family's voices, cheering, laughing, even clapping. I didn't turn around. I kept walking. I didn't look back. I was devastated, of course. But more than that, I was numb. How could someone I loved, someone I thought was my partner, do something so cruel? It was like a nightmare I couldn't wake from. I spent the rest of the evening sitting in my car, staring at the steering wheel, too stunned to process what had just happened. I didn't want to call anyone. I didn't want sympathy. I didn't want to talk about it. But the loneliness, the anger, it all started to settle in as the night wore on. I had been humiliated, used, thrown away like trash. I didn't know what came next. All I knew was that I couldn't just let this slide. It would take time, but I would make sure Claire felt the consequences of what she did. I wasn't going to let her or her family get away with this. 6 months went by in a blur of sadness and reflection. I did my best to get my life back on track, focusing on work and slowly rebuilding the confidence I'd lost. But then, one evening, something unexpected happened. The doorbell rang. When I opened the door, there she was. Claire. Her face was gaunt, her clothes ragged, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. She was holding a small suitcase, and there was a raw desperation in her eyes. "Eric," she whispered, her voice trembling. I need your help." I stood frozen, unable to speak. The woman who had publicly humiliated me, torn apart our life together, was standing on my doorstep, broken, alone, and begging for another chance. Part of me wanted to slam the door at her face. Part of me wanted to tell her to leave and never come back. But there was something else, too. Something deep inside me. Something that still longed for an answer, a reckoning. And as I looked at her, I realized I had the power to decide how this story would end. But first, I needed to hear her out. And that's when the real game began. I stood there, staring at Claire, unsure of what to say. Her eyes were wide with exhaustion and regret, but I couldn't just forget what had happened. She had humiliated me in front of everyone I knew, and now she was standing there, pleading for help. The part of me that still cared for her, despite everything, wanted to let her in, to hear her side. But the other part, the part that had been crushed under the weight of her betrayal, wanted to slam the door in her face and never look back. "Eric, please," she said again, her voice barely a whisper. I've lost everything. I don't know who to turn to. I'm so sorry. Please, let me explain." I didn't answer right away. I just stood there, my hand gripping the door frame. I hadn't seen her in months, and even though I was angry, a part of me still remembered the woman I had married, the woman I thought I knew. "Why are you here, Claire?" I finally managed to ask, my voice cold, distant. The anger I had tried to bury was seeping through. "You didn't just walk away from me. You humiliated me. You dragged me through the dirt in front of your entire family." Claire's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't try to wipe them away. She looked utterly broken. "I know," she said, her voice cracking. "And I regret it every day. You have to believe me. I was pushed. You don't know the things I've been dealing with. The pressure, the expectations, she paused, as if gathering her thoughts. I was afraid, Eric. Afraid of losing everything. Afraid of my family's disappointment. I let them influence me more than I should have. I crossed my arms, still standing in the doorway, my body tense. Your family. They were the ones who pushed you to do this to me. My mind was racing. I had always known her family was overbearing, but to manipulate her like that, to use her as some kind of pawn in their own games, it made my blood boil. You didn't even have the guts to come to me. You let them control everything. Claire shook her head, as if trying to convince herself as much as me. No, I should have said something. I should have stood up to them. But I didn't. I couldn't. And now I've lost everything. My family turned their backs on me the moment I told them I was leaving you. They said it was my only option, that I had to get away from you. But now, I'm alone. I have nothing. I clench my fists, struggling to control the rush of emotions inside me. Seeing her like this, broken, desperate, was tempting. A part of me wanted to feel sorry for her. I wanted to believe she was sincere. But the memories of that night, her coldness, the way her family cheered when I signed the divorce papers, kept flashing in my mind. The humiliation, the betrayal, it was all still so fresh. Why should I help you, Claire? I finally asked, my voice steady despite the storm of feelings swirling inside me. After everything, after what you did to me. She dropped her gaze to the ground, her shoulders shaking with quiet sobs. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even deserve your forgiveness. But I need to make things right. I know I can't undo what I did, but I need a chance to fix things. Please, Eric, I'm begging you. I stood there in silence, the weight of her words sinking in. I had every right to turn her away, to let her suffer the consequences of her actions. But something deep inside me, something primal, knew that this wasn't over. Not yet. I had a choice. I could either give her the help she claimed she needed, or I could let her fall apart. But as I looked at her, I couldn't help but feel a flicker of something else. Something darker. Something that whispered that I could use this moment, this vulnerability, to make her feel what I had felt. I didn't have to forgive her, but I could make her understand the pain she had caused me. I took a deep breath, trying to push aside the bitterness and rage threatening to overwhelm me. You want a second chance, Claire? You're going to have to earn it. Her eyes widened, and I could see the hope rising in them. What do you mean? How can I prove it? I stepped aside, opening the door a little wider. You can stay tonight, but you're not getting off easy. We're going to take this one step at a time. You'll do what I say, and if you truly regret what happened, if you're truly sorry, you'll be willing to do whatever it takes to make things right. Claire nodded fervently, relief flooding her features. Anything, Eric. I'll do whatever it takes. But as she stepped into the house, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was about to embark on something far more complicated than I had planned. What did I really want from her? What did I want to happen next? Part of me was still holding on to the hope that she could change, that we could rebuild what we had. But another part, an angrier part, was already thinking about how I could make her truly understand the depths of her betrayal. I didn't know what this new chapter would look like, but I had a feeling the power was finally in my hands. And I wasn't about to let that go. The next few days passed in a blur. Claire stayed in the guest room, just like I'd told her to. She didn't push me to forgive her, and she didn't act like everything was fine. She was respectful, maybe even a little too respectful, like she was walking on eggshells around me. The awkwardness was unbearable at times, but I couldn't deny that there was something about her presence, something about the way she looked at me with regret and shame that made me feel like I was in control. But then, one evening, things took an unexpected turn. I was in the living room, reading through some work emails when I heard a knock at the door. When I opened it, I found Claire's brother, Ben, standing there, grinning like a wolf. "Eric," he said, with a mockingly cheerful tone. "I heard Claire was back in town. You're really letting her stay here after everything." He raised an eyebrow, looking past me into the house. "You're not really going to fall for this act? Are you? I felt anger ignite. Ben had always been a smug, entitled fool, but this was crossing a line. What are you doing here, Ben? I asked, trying to keep my cool. Oh, nothing, he said, his grin widening. Just making sure my sister isn't taking advantage of you. I mean, you know how she gets when she's desperate, right? She'll charm the pants off you, and next thing you know, you're right back where you were, playing the fool again. I felt a surge of frustration rising inside me. I had no intention of going back to Claire like nothing had happened. But as Ben stood there, his words dripping with venom, I knew this wasn't just about Claire anymore. It was about her entire family. And I wasn't about to let them dictate what happened next. But how far was I willing to go to make them pay for what they did? And more importantly, what kind of revenge was I truly after? As Ben's words hung in the air, I realized the real test was about to begin. The game was on. Ben stood there, his arms crossed, smugly. He clearly expected me to back down or somehow crumble under the pressure. I felt a wave of anger rise in my chest as I stepped closer to him, my gaze never wavering. You don't get to tell me what to do, Ben. Not anymore, I said, my voice low but firm. Your sister is here because she's asking for a second chance, and I'm deciding whether or not she deserves one. Not you. Ben's eyes narrowed, his lips twisting into a sneer. You think you're some kind of hero now, saving her from the mess she made? You're just letting her walk all over you again, Eric. Don't fool yourself into thinking she's changed. She's only here because she has nowhere else to go. His voice dripped with contempt, but there was something in his tone, something personal that made my stomach churn. I'm not the one who messed up. I shot back, refusing to let him get to me. She's the one who walked away. But unlike you and your family, I'm not heartless enough to shut her out completely. If she wants to try to fix what she broke, then that's her decision, not yours. For a brief moment, Ben looked like he might say something else, something cruel, no doubt. But instead, he seemed to deflate just a little. The tension between us shifted, as though he realized there was no way to guilt-trip me into giving up my position. But then he smirked again, the same smugness creeping back into his voice. Well, good luck with that, Eric. I'm sure you'll have a real happy ending to this whole thing. But don't say I didn't warn you when it all blows up in your face. He turned to leave, but not before throwing one last parting shot over his shoulder. You're playing a dangerous game, and when Claire goes back to her old ways, you'll be the one left looking like the fool. Just remember that. I stood there in the doorway, watching him walk away, his words echoing in my mind. I hated how right he sounded, even if it was just to make himself feel superior. Claire's family was toxic, manipulative, and I could feel their influence over her even from a distance. But Ben's arrogance didn't change the fact that Claire had come to me asking for forgiveness, and that, no matter how much her family pushed, was something that I had to decide for myself. As the days wore on, things between Claire and me remained tense. She tried to help around the house, doing little things like washing dishes or making small talk. But there was always an invisible wall between us. It wasn't just the past that separated us. It was the realization that what had happened had irreparably changed the dynamic of our relationship. She had humiliated me in front of everyone I loved, and though she seemed to genuinely regret it, I couldn't help but wonder if that regret was just another act. Was she just playing me again? Still, as much as I hated to admit it, part of me still longed for the connection we had once shared. The memories of happier days, before her family's influence had torn us apart, clung to me like a ghost, haunting every interaction we had. I kept telling myself I was doing the right thing by giving her a second chance, but deep down, I feared I was only setting myself up for more heartache. It was around this time that I noticed something strange. Every time Claire went out, she seemed to return with something, a new item of clothing, a fresh takeout bag from the fancy restaurant she used to love. It wasn't much, but it caught my attention. And then one evening, as I was cleaning up after dinner, I noticed a large, bulging envelope lying on the kitchen counter. I picked it up curiosity gnawing at me, and saw that it was addressed to Claire from a law office in the city. My heart skipped a beat. I opened the envelope without thinking, desperate to know what it was. Inside was a stack of papers covered in legal jargon. More divorce papers. I felt my stomach drop to my feet. What was this? After everything? After all the guilt and the pleas and the promises to make things right, was this what Claire had been doing behind my back? Preparing for the next step in her life without me? I stormed into the living room where Claire was sitting, flipping through a magazine. She looked up, startled, as I slammed the papers onto the coffee table. "What is this, Claire?" I demanded, my voice shaking with a mixture of anger and disbelief. She froze, her face paling. "Eric, I can explain." I didn't want to hear her explanations. I didn't want to hear any more empty words from her. "Explain? You're still trying to get rid of me, aren't you? After everything, after you begged me to let you stay, you're still planning to leave." Claire's eyes filled with tears, her hands trembling as she picked up the papers. "Eric, please listen. This isn't what you think." Her voice was frantic, as if she was desperately trying to convince me of something. When I came back, I was trying to find a way to fix things, but I didn't know what else to do. "I was afraid you'd turn me away for good, so I thought." "You thought what? That you could keep stringing me along while you made backup plans?" I cut her off, my voice rising. "This is unbelievable. How long have you been planning this, Claire? How long have you been playing me like a fool?" She collapsed onto the couch, her face crumpling as she buried her face in her hands. "I'm sorry, Eric. I was scared. I thought I could handle everything, but I was wrong. I was trying to make sure that if things didn't work out, I wouldn't be completely alone. But I never wanted this to hurt you. I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know how to undo the damage I'd done." I took a step back, my chest tightening with anger and fresh betrayal. Everything, her promises, her apologies, was starting to feel like an act. She was the same as always, just using her tears to manipulate the situation in her favor. How much longer could I put up with this? How much longer could I let her spin the same web of lies and deceit before I had to finally walk away for good? But as I looked at her, sitting there, broken and pleading, I realized something that sent a chill through my bones. Maybe she wasn't the only one playing a game. Maybe I'd been playing too. I turned and walked to the door, pausing only long enough to say, "I think you should leave. I don't know what your next move is, Claire, but this isn't it." Before she could respond, I stepped out into the night, leaving her behind. But as I walked away, something twisted in my gut. I didn't know what was next, but I was no longer playing by her rules. This was my turn now, and I wasn't done yet. As I stood outside, the cool night air biting at my skin, I realized I'd only just begun to take control of the situation. Claire had no idea what was coming, and neither did her family. But they were about to find out. The next few days felt like an emotional roller coaster. I stayed at my place, processing everything in silence, letting the weight of what had happened settle in. Claire didn't try to contact me again. I think she knew, deep down, that she'd pushed too far. Her family? Well, they stayed out of it, probably hoping I'd cave in and forgive her. But they didn't know me. I spent a lot of time reflecting on what had happened, trying to come to terms with the betrayal I'd endured. At the same time, I realized something important. I didn't owe anyone an explanation anymore. I didn't have to justify myself to Claire or her family. I had made my decisions, and I was going to stand by them. A few weeks later, I got a call from Claire. I hesitated, staring at my phone, but I knew I had to deal with this. I answered, trying to keep my voice neutral. "Eric," she said, her voice shaky. I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say. I've messed everything up. Please, just hear me out. I'm not asking for forgiveness right away. I need you to know I'm trying to change." I stood there, listening to her words, but the truth of it hit me like a slap in the face. She still thought this was something I could just fix by accepting her back. She was still playing me, trying to pull at my heartstrings. But I was done. "No, Claire," I said, keeping my voice steady. You don't get to come back into my life just because it's convenient for you. You had your shot, and you blew it. This isn't about me forgiving you. It's about you understanding the damage you've done. You hurt me, Claire, and I've spent too much time second-guessing myself while you've been out there pretending like it's all just a game. She was silent for a long moment. I never meant to hurt you, Eric. ISTO. I cut her off. No more apologies. I don't need them anymore. I'm done letting you control this narrative. This is over. And just like that, I ended the conversation. It was hard, but I knew it was the right thing to do. I wasn't going to be the doormat anymore. I wasn't going to let her walk back into my life like nothing had happened. The next day, I started making some changes. I reached out to friends I hadn't talked to in a while. I joined a few new hobbies, focusing on the things I enjoyed before Claire and her drama became the center of my world. It wasn't easy to let go of the idea of us, but I knew I couldn't keep holding on to something that was never going to work out. A few months later, out of nowhere, I got a text from Claire. It was brief, but to the point. I'm sorry, Eric. I've done a lot of thinking. I know I messed up, but I want to say thank you. You show me how to stand up for myself, and I'm working on making things right. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I just wanted to let you know that. I read the message a few times, letting it sink in. I wasn't angry anymore. Honestly, I didn't even feel pity. I had let go. Claire was on her own journey now, and I was no longer part of it. But I felt something else too. Relief. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't weighed down by guilt or the fear of losing her. I had taken control of my life again, and I was stronger for it. I responded with just a short message. I hope you find what you're looking for, Claire. I really do. But I'm moving forward, and I'm not looking back. That was the last time we communicated. Life, surprisingly, moved on smoothly after that. I spent more time with friends, focusing on my work, and started dating again. No strings attached, no emotional baggage. And you know what? I felt free. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe. Claire and her family eventually came to terms with the fact that I wasn't going to be the guy they could walk all over anymore. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she was trying to piece her life back together, but it wasn't easy. And while I didn't feel bad about it, I also didn't revel in her downfall. People are human. We all mess up. But I wasn't about to let someone who treated me like an afterthought back into my life. As for me, I was doing better than I had in years. I'd taken the power back, and I was building a future on my own terms. No more games. No more manipulation. Just me, learning from the past, and moving on with my life. And you know what? I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving. That was the last chapter in my story with Claire.